The amount of emails that I get sent being such a small blog magazine, and then so you times that by however many that, you know, bigger press are going to be receiving. There'll be artists which have amazing music, but just if their photo just doesn't grab your eye or just think, you will skim past it. The biggest benefit of press coverage is being able to get more press coverage with it. I'd say that's one of the most important things, honestly.
Now, you can take this if you want as your guide to getting into boot music, but I think the idea is that this is going to apply to sort of different things that you might want to look at. So, do you think zines and blogs and that local press side of things still play an important role in the local music industry? I'm guessing you're going to say yes to that.
Yes, but I don't think as much as they used to. I don't think it's like... again, like I said, it's kind of... I don't think it's this bigger thing. I don't think the voice of boot music is bigger or more important than anyone else, really, that's in the local scene. Like, you know, if an artist shouts out about another artist that they like on their account, that means just as much as what we're saying. The only benefit of it really is making it an engaging read and trying to get across our passion for it and just trying to dig a little bit deeper into, you know, especially a band's kind of trajectory locally, featuring their first single and then sticking with them and showcasing their journey that they've gone on, and just trying to be an extra voice that adds to everyone that's, you know, shouting about them, and hopefully, especially some of the artists that are just coming through, kind of trying to give them an initial push to get them out to more people, so that they can then start their own journey.
Do you think there's still a sense of sort of prestige almost when you get covered in something that's like a physical print or like a magazine that you can sort of show people? Yeah,
definitely. I think it's a nice feeling. It's like, it's the same in a way as, you know, when an artist first starts out, the big goal is to have that album, that physical album that they can hold. Yeah. And it just feels so nice because that's the culmination of all your work in physical, tangible form. And even though being featured in a magazine is a step down from that, but it's another kind of a physical, tangible representation of like you're going the right way and things are going well for you. And I think just seeing as well like your creative process and the work that you've put into something kind of explained and picked apart by someone else in a positive way, and just seeing what someone else liked about it and what they gained from it is just a really wholesome, nice feeling.
Yeah. So as someone who puts people in music magazines, what are you looking for from someone who might apply to you?
So starting the physical magazine has changed my outlook on that a lot, really. I think most things that people are looking for do extend across both online and print. But the thing with print, which has really changed my outlook, is just how important the visual side is, which is, it's a bit of a shame, really, because there's great artists that just don't really like having their photo taken, or they just haven't had a high quality photo shoot yet, but their music's amazing. But it's really difficult to put someone in a full page in a magazine when they've got a really low quality photo, because it is a visual form of media, really. Even though it's, you know, it's meant to be about reading about the artists, the visual side is what, you know, catches your eye and makes you want to read about it. So I'd say that's one of the most important things, honestly, is having a visual identity for your band, getting good photos in, just so you can represent who you are straight away.
Yeah, I think that is definitely underestimated, because I was like, the first thing I did when I picked this copy of Boot Up is that I sort of just flicked through and wasn't really reading it, just sort of looking. And then you sort of see, oh, that looks interesting. And then you sort of pick bits through. And eventually, if you're interested in it, you probably read the whole thing. But it's definitely something where you need, if you're someone who's creating a magazine like that, the visual identity is just going to be so important to whether or not you can feature an artist.
Yeah, definitely. I think that kind of, I really got faced with that in the first ever issue that we did. And it was lucky in a way that some of the artists we'd just agreed to feature happened to have amazing photos. And like, for example, we had Abby Ozard locally, who love Abby's music as well. But she was the first interview in the magazine. So as you went through it, she was the first person that you saw in it. And even though, I mean, she's doing really well, but there was artists in there that are bigger than her in terms of the size of the live shows they play and the Spotify listeners and things like that. But because of the quality of her photos and just how cool she looked in it, you instantly thought, if you've never heard of her before, you just went, this artist looks like they're doing really well. They look like they're really cool, and you want to read it. Whereas, conversely to that, there'll be artists which have amazing music, but just if their photo just doesn't grab your eye or just think, you will skim past it, which is a shame. But that's just that's true.
It is important. So if someone's applying to you, you obviously, as you said, you're looking for a few good photos that would be sort of something you could print on a physical print. Would that sort of come in the form of an EPK typically, or like a link to a folder? Or
to be honest, it's kind of interesting how there's so many different ways of an artist reaching out to you. Whether that is just an email, just talking about what they're doing, whether, like you say, that's sending an EPK, or even Instagram DMs or something. I don't. It will vary, publication to publication, the method they prefer to source their new music from. But I think just in terms of that first message, it's just making it clear what sets you apart, like what is your music. I think it's very easy to just be to categorize yourself as, we're a 4-piece indie rock band from Liverpool, and it's like, that's cool, but
I know a lot of them.
Yeah, it's like, we get sent so many of them, and it's like, I'm sure your music's really good, but what else is that? You can say you've written a song and it's a bit of a it's a good song, but it's got like an odd theme to it. Say it's about I don't know, there was a band I was speaking to, I can't remember now, and they were talking about it being based off this animated film, and it's like, just tell me about that. Say, we made a song based off this weird film, and that might not work for some people, because some people see that and go, that sounds weird, but then there'll be other people that read that and go, that sounds interesting. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I want to listen to it. Or people that even go, I know what that film is. I want to hear about it. Do you know what I mean? There's just different anchors that you can use to hook, press in, that, like I said, won't work for everyone, but there'll be a few which it gets them in. I think a good one is film, actually, is saying, we've made a song that could soundtrack this film, and kind of describe your music in that way. Because it's a more interesting way of saying, okay, we're indie rock or whatever, but we've got indie rock and it's got a moody theme to it. It's got this kind of vibe. If you just say, like, it could feature in this film, it'd be like Quentin Tarantino soundtrack. Then you go, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. And I think just it's the same as hooking people in on an Instagram video. It's like, if you just leave a little hook there that leaves someone wondering, oh, what do you really mean? Or I want to learn about that. I want to hear what you mean. Does it really sound like what you've said? That'll get someone listening, and then then the music will speak for itself, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I think people underestimate that using visual language and sort of describing your music in a way that no one else is going to describe their music as. Because as much as I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing to, like, say in an EPK or a pitch something, compare yourself to some artists that you're similar to, I think you can almost get more of a feel for a band if they say this music could soundtrack a Quentin Tarantino film than you would if someone says we sound like Arctic Monkeys and Stone and these bands.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well, I would say, to add to that, if you're a local as well, try and meet people in person if you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously tricky because it's often hard to know whether it's press or management or a record label or something. It's hard to know who are the actual people behind that, who's running it. And I don't mean go out, try and stalk people and turn up to shows they're going at.
Us press are normal people too, guys.
But say it's, like with the magazine show, it's like, just go along to something like that where say a record label is doing a little showcase, or my magazine is doing a live night. Just go along and then chat to the people, because it's, you're 10 times more likely to get something positive coming out of speaking to someone in person. I know that's very tricky if you're not from the city.
Yeah.
But if you're local, it's such a better way to do things. And even if you know someone that knows them, just messaging someone saying, I've been passed on your contact from this person, or I was speaking to this person that you know, and they said that you run a great magazine or you run a great blog or whatever. I think just little things like that just kind of you stand to attention a little bit more and go, oh, okay, they've kind of, if my mate who makes really good music likes these and they're friends with them, then I'm sure, I'll do them a favour.
Builds a bit of trust, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Where like a friend that has good taste in music likes this band, then that's going to immediately give you a slightly better perspective on that.
Yeah, it's just another form of approval for them. It's another suggestion that these people are worth listening to. So I think anything like that you can put into an initial message is worthwhile.
Would you say, we were talking about sort of how people apply, would you say that sort of just meeting someone in person is probably your preferred method, or
I think
email or different things? It'll be different for everyone, of course.
I think when it comes to meeting in person, that is what I find the best, because you can chat to people and you can ask them so much stuff in the space of 2 minutes, and you can find out all about their personality, for one, which I do think makes an impact on featuring someone. Their personality, what their plans are with the band, what they've been doing, finding out what music they've got in the works, finding out what live shows they have. You can find it all out with just speaking to them. And especially if they're a really sound person, you'll just be like, you're really sound, so yeah, we'll write something.
Do you have any examples of a really bad pitch or a really bad attempt to try and get featured?
Oh, well, there's a few, I think.
Go on, drop some names.
Again, no, I actually, it's a shame I can't remember the names, because I would like to. But no, I think the annoying ones are when it's like, I think there's two types of annoying ones. First one is when someone's just like, they clearly don't care about actually speaking to you. They're just dropping a message in, and it's just like, we've released our new single, go stream it now. And it's like, and I just know they're sending that to everyone. And that's fine, but it's just like, it doesn't have any kind of connection, or like, it's like, are you going to speak about the band, or do you want to chat about it or anything? So that's just kind of like cold messaging like that.
Yeah.
But then also the really annoying one is when a band's like, and I do get why doing this is it can work sometimes, but the annoying one is just going in like, we're the best band in the world, like we're better than everyone else, like why are you featuring all these other artists? You should be featuring us, like all this stuff. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, it instantly just puts me off.
Yeah, I mean, being a dickhead's never going to get you anywhere, is
No, I mean, we've had that with, especially when I was working at Sound City. I think that was a good example. Naming no names for it at all, but like you'd get loads of artists applying to play the festival, but then you'd get some artists being like, why aren't we featuring on the lineup? We should be featuring all the other bands that you've got playing on it are rubbish. And it's like, just talking about the rest of your peers and other bands in the scene in a negative way to try and up yourself is just never the way to go. Yeah,
that's never going to work, is it? No. Do you scout artists yourself at local events as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the best places to discover someone as well. It's a whole different thing seeing someone live compared to hearing their track. There's so many bands where whether it's down to the production of it, the mixing, whatever, just isn't quite right, that it doesn't capture the energy and the intensity of their live show. There's like Young Fathers are a good example. One of my favourite bands this year, and me and my brother were talking about it, saying that their first 2 or 3 albums just didn't capture how amazing and intense and vibrant their live shows are. But then I felt like their album this year finally captured that, and I listened to it and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then went to see them and was like, yeah, it just all makes sense now. Because seeing someone live, you just get a much more rounded sense of what they're about. Because I think it's one thing hearing the music, but seeing how they perform it, what certain songs mean to them, the energy they can put into a show, or the intimacy and vulnerability that they can express when they're performing live, it adds a completely new dimension that if I've seen someone that plays well live, I'll be like, even if the song doesn't quite live up to that energy, I'll be like, I know what they're like, I know what they can be, and I know the potential they've got in them in the future. So I'll be like, right, okay, they're amazing live. Let's talk about this, and just say. I'll always say in the article as well, go and see them live though, because this song doesn't quite do it justice.
Yeah. How do you think as an artist you can sort of capture that essence of your personality to make a live show feel unique and make it something that would grab someone's attention?
I think just putting your all into it. Like you have to instantly just in the first song, you have to be making it clear to people, even if you're not speaking to them, because some people really struggle with that, and that's fine. But just in some way, just show every single person in there that you care about this music and you think this music is great. I think, say if it's a more, a rock punk kind of style show, then you have to be putting intensity into it, and you have to be jumping around. You have to be putting your all into it. Getting people trying to come close to the stage and make it like a visceral experience, I think is really important. But then if it's a slower acoustic thing, then even with that, just kind of drawing people into it by talking about what the song means to you, talking about the process of writing it or where the idea came from, just little things that make the live show more memorable. And if you can, just get that live on stage performance the most engaging it can be, through humour, through energy on stage, just through anything you can do.
Yeah. What kind of stories and artists do you think resonate most with you and the audience that Boot has?
I think it's interesting because there's so many different kinds of stories that people have behind their music. But I think ones that really resonate the most, I mean, it's always ones that have come from a place of like deep emotion, people that really care about it, because that does come through when you see them play live, or you just hearing their vocal performance on a track. You can hear what it means to them. So I think people that have a real story behind the music that they're making, and it doesn't have to be expressing your greatest pains in life, and it's like you can have had a normal like boring life but still write really interesting music, because it's about the thoughts that you inside your head, and it can be things that are completely fictional, but just it coming from like a real source of, I had a really cool idea and I've thought about it, and just having that kind of creative artistic expression inside there, rather than just being like, we had this kind of like generic like cool little song that we had and we thought it needed some words to it, so we just made up like generic words. And they can make good songs, but it's like that doesn't connect the most with the readers, because when you do an interview, for example, and you ask someone, what does this song, what inspired you to write this song, what does this song mean to you, what effect do you want the song to have on the audience, if it's come from a place of real creativity, then their answer to that will be so engaging that it will make you want to go and listen to it.
Yeah, I think you can definitely tell when an artist, and this goes beyond the lyrics, it goes into everything, when an artist is like desperate to tell you about their music, and then there's something really powerful about that. How important do you think it is for artists to sort of develop a sense of what their story is as an artist and what they are before like pitching to some kind of local press? Yeah,
it's difficult to work out where like the trajectory for when to do certain things. It's obviously very tempting to just form a band, put a song out, and often bands do that and they're not fully formed. They don't really know what sound they're trying to go for. They don't know what kind of look, style they're trying to go for, and they don't really know where they want to end up. And so sometimes that can kind of hurt them a bit, because if they put something out when they're not fully ready to do so, and then a label or whoever they're trying to pitch to sees it and goes, no, they're not ready. And then 6 months down the line, they could be ready then, but because they've seen them before and they go, oh no, we've seen you already and we didn't, it didn't really work. So I think it is kind of important to just sit down and just chat as a band about what kind of band you want to be and where you want to go. Because, I'm not saying, especially if you're like, if you're 14, 15, starting a band, just start playing and just, make music. But if you're in a band and you seriously want it to be a career, I think don't, take the fun out of it at all. Still just, make the kind of music you want to make and do whatever you want to do. But I think just sitting down as a band and having a little chat about what do we want ourselves to look like, what do we want to appear like, to convey what kind of music we're making, that's the one that often bands miss, especially young bands, because you're just at school, you're just wearing your clothes, whatever you wear, and you're just kind of, you're not thinking about that too much. But it is really important to just sit down as a band and be like, we want to have this kind of style because we feel this represents the music that we like and we want to make. And we're living in a world now where you said before is one of your sources for new music is Instagram. And it's like, if you see a band and you just see the kind of way they're dressed, again, Shifu, a great example. You see Shifu and you go, I know what kind of music they make.
Yeah.
And it's if you dress like that and you like that kind of music, you just see them and you instantly go, this is my kind of community. I want to get involved. So I think just having that conversation as a band is really important.
Yeah, I think some people seem to think it's limiting, and I just don't agree, because I think it's almost freeing to be like this. Well, this is what we want to do. We want this to feel like this, and you've got, as you said, the sort of like image and sort of look, and I think it all comes together with the music that you want to make, the image that you want to, like, what your photos look like, what your videos look like, and it all comes together in sort of how it feels to be a fan of that band, and what that who that person is, and sort of where, like, thinking about where does the person who listens to our music hang out? What do they do? What do they eat for breakfast? Just stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think
no,
really
exactly.
Helps tap into that.
It's about, relating to the artist. That is when you get the super fans that people like Crawlers have. You get it when they're not just a band. They're a band that, through their visual identity and their sound, represent a certain kind of person. They represent a certain group of people that, in that case, might feel a bit underrepresented, and they're offering a voice for them to come to the shows, a safe space to meet new people in that community and to enjoy that kind of music and that kind of culture. But if Crawlers didn't look like they did, it would be so much harder for people to make that connection straight away, because they wouldn't know what kind of community Crawlers are representing.
Yeah, I think Crawlers are a really unique example, because, as I said, how they sort of provide a safe space and a voice for people who feel underrepresented. I don't think it always has to be to sort of that extent, but I think that's one of the reasons that Crawlers are so successful, is that you could walk down the street and guess who might be a Crawlers fan and who might not be, and there's just based on like how they look, how they act, where they are in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I always love it when you go into a show and say it's a slightly bigger show, and kind of everyone's getting off the train or the bus or whatever at the same point, and you can tell who on that train is going to the gig. And it's because you can just tell from the way people are dressed or the attitudes, the vibe people are giving off. You can tell which people like the same band as you. And that's a nice feeling. That's part of the community aspect of going to a live show. But I think, on the flip side, it can be very hard for a young band trying to do that, because you don't really know who you are if you're 15, 16. And so you maybe don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one certain, kind of style. And it can be tricky if, say, there's a band trying to start out. We'll use that Crawlers kind of aesthetic as an example. If there's 3 people in the band that really align with that and want to dress like that and, live and breathe that kind of culture, but then one person in the band just isn't really feeling it and they don't want to dress like that, and that doesn't represent them, but they're mates with all the other people and they love the music, that can be really hard, because that can come to a point where the rest of the band is like, you have to kind of join us or you're out. And that's really tricky, but like it's tough to say, but you kind of have to just go with it, really. It's like, I'm not saying dilute yourself. You can find a place in that kind of style and aesthetic that also suits you. You don't have to go full blown like piercings and dyed hair if that's not you. But you can still try and find a way where you can, as a band, you can fit that visual identity of the band. Yeah.
So let's say you've worked out your visual identity, you've got some good pictures, because as we know that's clearly important. You've got a sense of like the music you're going to make, you've got a sense of the story of who you are and what you represent. How do you sort of bring all of that together to email you to have a page in Boot magazine?
So I think, the EPK that you mentioned before is a good little thing to know how to do yourself. There's a lot of artists out there which don't really understand how to make one of them. But that's, just Google it. It's like... Yeah,
there's loads of resources online about that kind of
there's
stuff.
so many good tools and pages that will be able to explain it much better than I can. And there's just things that so much things you can learn on YouTube about making EPKs, how to pitch to press or to labels, whatever. Because what it's about is showcasing every aspect of you. So you want to have the visual side that we've just spoken about. You want to have your picture up in front center so people can understand what you look like. But then you also want to have that description we talked about of what kind of music you're making, something interesting, a hook in there to set you apart from other people. Then you want to have all your social links in there as well, because again, it's, you know, sad to say really, but like it does matter now. So having your social links in there, and then you also want to have the list of live shows, because like we said before about that's a completely different way to experience someone. So having those live shows, and maybe even adding on to the email saying, if you want to come down to any of the live shows listed, just let us know. We'll put you on the guest list. And so just putting all those things together, I think is really important. Also, I think something that gets forgotten quite a lot when you're reaching out to press is saying what you're going to be doing for the rest of the year is quite important sometimes. It's like it's very tempting to just talk about the new single you've just released because you're excited about it, and that is important because you're trying to get a feature for that single, and that makes sense. But say you've got 2 more singles coming out next month and then the month after, even if it doesn't suit the press to feature you in that moment because either the magazine's full or they just don't have the time, but then they can like log it and be like, oh, but you've got something coming out next month or the month after, we might have time down the line. And then so they kind of then log it and they go, okay, maybe in 3 months time when you've had 3 singles as well, and we can do a bit of a bigger feature about all 3 singles together. It just kind of provides a nice overview of where the band's heading.
Just a quick one. What would you say is sort of a good lead time for pitching for when you would want to be sort of featured in your case? It's
interesting that, because it really does vary between different press. I think for me, I would say the 2 weeks before, I would say, because it gives you time to say you're trying to put this out to your whole writing team.
Is that 2 weeks before like the artist releases?
Yes, 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the artist release would be the best, but that's just for me personally, because for us, we might want to find one of our writers to cover it. Say I can't cover it myself, because even though I do the majority of the writing, there's other things that we get people to contribute. So it's 2 weeks is a good time to hear it, to go, yeah, cool, we like that. Try and find a writer for it, and then write something up in time for the day of release. Because I think if you release something and then start sending all the press out, that's fine for some, and we'll still feature stuff that has been released a month ago. We don't care about that, but there will be press that are like, we've missed the boat on it, you've sent it too late. So I think sending 2 or 3 weeks in advance is good to just get ahead of the game, and then remind those people that haven't replied or that showed interest, remind them a few days before the release day as well, and just go, just so you know, this is coming out this week, and just add that other thing in.
So let's say you've done all this, you're successful, you've got your music into Boot Music, the pinnacle of your career. How can an artist sort of make the most of getting press coverage like that? How do you sort of capitalise on it once it's happened?
So I think that, funnily enough, the biggest benefit of press coverage is being able to get more press coverage with it. So it kind of sounds a bit stupid to say, but it's like the best way you could use, using Boot Music as an example, the best way you could use, say, getting the front cover of that, for example, is just speaking to other press and being like, showing them what's already been out there and been covered. I think maybe mine's a bad example because mine's not like too known, but say it's like you've been featured on Radio 1. There's a band that I'm working with called Sugarstone, doing their press for them at the moment. And I think this week they are the Radio 1 introducing track of the week. And the way, that's obviously great for them, but the way to use that is to then reach out to more press and go, look, we're the track of the week this week on Radio 1. And that's the hook I was talking about before, about setting them apart from someone else. It's like, if you kind of were ignoring this band, and then you see, wait, Radio 1 like them, so they must be good. Like, Radio 1 have heard their music and gone, this deserves to be track of the week. So it's kind of, again, it's another form of approval, of recognition, of gone, someone that is in the know likes this band. Let's jump on it before we can't feature them, before they get too big to feature them. I think it sounds cynical, but press are ultimately not going to turn down the opportunity to ride sort of the crest of a wave.
So if they have an opportunity to sort of catch a band before they become, as you said, become maybe too big to get featured in that kind of thing, I think they definitely will. I think, yeah, you're completely right. I think if I was featured in a magazine, I think the first thing I would do is add that to the EPK that I just sent them. And then when I next send press out, just as an example that you're sort of credible, that you've been featured for, like we were saying before about that almost sense of like prestige that you get from being covered in something that's like physical and print.
Yeah, it's just because there's so much out there. Obviously, it's like the amount of emails that I get sent being such a small blog magazine, and then so you times that by however many that, you know, bigger press are going to be receiving, and just to see in that subject line, see, you know, backed by Clash, or they're the BBC Radio 1 introducing track of the week, just something that goes, okay, people in the scene are already picking this band up, let's have a look and see if we need to pick them up as well. I think as well, you know, another good way to just use that press coverage is in terms of socials. I think it's always good to pin your best press coverage that you've got, post it on Instagram, whatever, and then pin it to the top of your page.
Yeah.
Alongside, say, you have your latest release pinned, a live show announcement pinned, and then your best press. Because then when someone goes onto that, if they're from the industry, even a fan as well, they'll see that and they'll go, right, they're backed by Six Music, they must be half decent. What's their latest song if I want to have a listen? And what if I want to go and see them live? And that's the three things at the top of your Instagram profile. And I think it's just, press is probably it's the least important of those three, but it's just a little sounding board of like, oh, okay, these bands are doing something at the moment. Yeah.
So if you're a smaller artist who hasn't been featured so far, I think that's why sort of local and smaller press is so important, because you're probably not going to get featured in the digital version now, I guess, but of NME, if you've never been featured in any kind of magazine before. So I think that's why it's really important to sort of work within your local scene. And this goes for beyond press. It goes for things like radio, local gigs, all sorts of stuff. It's sort of getting involved in your local scene is just going to be so important to being able to develop and build yourself out of that.
Yeah, because I think, especially with the local smaller press, and it's the same for us. If we see a band that we've been getting sent a couple of times on email, and this has happened, I'm trying to think which band it was now. Maybe it was Divorce, a band called Divorce, when they were coming up, and we got sent them, and we just like, nothing about the email really grabbed us to go and listen to it. And then it said featured in Clash, and we were like, okay, well,
there you go,
there must be something about them. Had a listen, we're like, oh, actually, not all to our taste, but it was like, this song, I actually really like this. And also it's like, if they're getting picked up by Clash now, then we might miss the boat, and we like the band, so let's go and interview them now or speak to them now before they get too big.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, perfect. Me too.
So first thing to say is that this is a great zine. I've really enjoyed reading it, especially the New York to Nashville, the road trip part.
Oh yeah, well that was a bit of a self-indulgent thing to put in.
I loved it.
That was literally my own holiday from. I was working with Sound City in New York, doing a David Bowie convention there, and then that was my last day with the company. So I was like, well, I'm in America, so, and I like music. Where do I want to go? So went to Nashville, and then just covered some of the bands in New York and Nashville, and honestly, one of the best music experiences I've had of just meeting so many new bands there. And it's a very similar vibe to Liverpool as well.
Yeah,
that it's kind of in Tennessee. There's a lot of laws and attitudes that I don't agree with in Tennessee, but it kind of seems like a lot of those states have a very liberal city, and I think Nashville is the kind of one for Tennessee. Yeah, and it was it's really good. So it was just a nice for me to be able to put down my kind of little road trip into a physical magazine.
Now, as someone who's a fan of music writing and travel writing, that just ticked all my boxes. So I really enjoyed that. You've just announced issue 4, right? That's coming out soon?
Issue 4, yeah. So issue 4 is quite an exciting one. We've got the Hives on the cover. Wow. So an interview with them, which was a bizarre experience interviewing them. But for people that don't know the Hives too well, they say that they don't write any of their own music. They say that there's this guy called Randy Fitzsimmons who writes all of their music for them, and they're just kind of puppets to go out and play the music. So when you're doing an interview with them, you can't say, what was the idea behind this song, or like, how was it writing this song, or whatever. You can't talk about making the music, because they just say, oh, well, Randy Fitzsimmons just gave it to us. So you have to kind of play along with their story of the latest album being that Randy Fitzsimmons was dead. They visited his grave, and inside the coffin was all the new music for the album. And you just have to go along with it and be like, oh, did you expect to find that there at the grave? And ask all these questions. So it's a bizarre experience talking to them. But honestly, growing up loving the Hives, it was really, really good experience to interview them, and nice to have them on the cover. And as well, there's always really good local artists in there as well.